sari being distributed, or biryani sammelan gone wrong, or to name it, booth capturing, poll violence, and muscle power, the original Wild West of Indian politics. In fact, up till nearly the 2000s, the MCC was merely seen as a list of suggestions to most netas and political parties. Parties have to campaign responsibly. No flashy promises. Obviously, that is the dream. Think of the silence period as MCC on steroids. Namaste, everyone. Since election season has been with Bihar on road, I'm sure all our news and social media feed is filled with Bihar's political tussles. But every now and then, amidst all the political chaos and team fixing, what we often miss out on focusing on are election terms, such as MCC, star campaigner, exit polls, election silence, and Falana Dimkana.
Modi made a political speech after casting his vote at Ahmedabad and that it was a violation of Model Code of Conduct.
Or think that the present Model Code of Conduct can really do something like Goli Maro, that's not possible.
आज से 23 मई से शाम को 6 बजे से साइलेंस पीरियड की शुरुआत हो गई है.
Yes, we hear these terms every election like clockwork. But today let's take out 10 minutes to actually understand these terms. Terms which are actually critical for voters and for their own benefit. If you don't believe us, keep watching. So आज के लिए we will just focus on untangling two such election terms. MCC, that is Model Code of Conduct, and silence period. So let's get into it. So when you hear MCC or election silence period, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Some neta's funny viral speech, or some big over-the-top rallies, sari being distributed, or biryani sammelan gone wrong, or one neta giving it to the opponent and the opponent hitting back. Whatever popped into your head, did you by any chance think of the big boss of this all? The big boss being the Election Commission of India, the entity which is the mastermind when it comes to MCC and silence period. Before we go any further, let's get a simple fact down. Our ECI is backed by Article 324 of the Indian Constitution. Article 324 establishes the ECI as a constitutional, autonomous body and grants it the power of superintendence, direction and control of elections to parliament and state legislatures, as well as offices of the Vice President and President of India. Simply put, ECI has absolute freedom to run India's election, though obviously under constitutional parameters. And since the ECI is responsible for conducting elections, this also means that it is the ECI's duty to ensure that these elections are conducted freely and fairly. However, this very duty to ensure that elections are conducted freely and fairly has been challenged time and time again since independence. You name it, booth capturing, poll violence, and muscle power, the original Wild West of Indian politics that were common throughout the 1960s to the 1990s. Today, these election challenges have evolved to fast spreading fake news, misinformation, and deepfakes. It's these challenges that led the ECI to create a guidebook for parties and candidates in order to keep elections as fair and free as possible. But where did it all start? It started with the creation of the Model Code of Conduct, followed by the amendment of Section 126 to the RPA Act of 1951 to include the silence period. To understand this better, let's go back to the decision of the State Election Commission of one of India's states, God's own country, Kerala. The year was 1960 and the Kerala Assembly election season was on, when a list of do's and don'ts for various aspects of elections like processions, political rallies, and speeches were prepared. Soon after, by the 1968-69 midterm general elections, the ECI improved this list and introduced the Minimum Code of Conduct, a set of guidelines for political parties and candidates during elections to ensure fair and orderly campaigning and polling, which later evolved to Model Code of Conduct. This doesn't mean that MCC ki journey was simple. The MCC, along with its name, has been updated several times, with significant revisions in 1979, 1982, 1991 and 2013. In fact, up till nearly the 2000s, the MCC was merely seen as a list of suggestions to most netas and political parties. Issues such as lack of clarity in when the MCC needs to be enforced or who is ensuring its enforcement often came in the way of MCC's successful implementation. But in 2001, enough was enough because this issue landed in the courts and a landmark judgment came out of it. Union of India versus Harbans Singh Jalal and others. So what happened? The year was 1996 and the Congress government wanted to implement schemes, but they couldn't since MCC was in effect during the Punjab Assembly elections. And so in 1997, a former MLA, Harbans Singh Jalal, filed a petition in the Punjab and Haryana High Court that MCC could be considered to be applied only after the governor's official notification, not from the ECI schedule announcement. He contended that neither Article 324 or any other election law backs the enforcement of MCC before official notification. The High Court dismissed the plea, ruling that the party in power cannot misuse their powers before an election, and the MCC was ECI's legal way to conduct elections. In 2001, the Supreme Court upheld this judgment, and this legal contest gave the MCC judicial legitimacy under Article 324, thus making it essential for fair elections. Voila! Once a simple list, now a judicially recognized code backed by consensus of political parties pan-India. Today, the MCC has become a key phase of Indian elections. It is the phase that kicks in immediately the minute the ECI announces the election schedule and continues till the end of the elections. That is when election results are declared. पर ये MCC करता क्या है? Example से समझते हैं. Think of MCC like your exam timetable. Once it's out, your Netflix privileges are over. You need to follow certain rules, focus on studying, avoid distractions, and prepare for exams properly with no plans to cheat. Similarly, once the ECI announces the election schedule, political parties must follow the MCC guidelines. From that point, parties have to campaign responsibly. No flashy promises. Obviously, that is the dream. Misuse of power. No personal attacks or unfair tactics while also keeping an eye on the opponent's game and possible missteps. Let's understand these guidelines with simple examples. There are 8 provisions under MCC as we have outlined in this table here. They broadly guide parties and candidates on how they need to conduct their speeches, public meetings, rallies, and function before, during, and after polling. Moreover, the parties need to be mindful of what their election manifestos promise, and the party in power too has certain rules to follow. For instance, the party in power cannot use government machinery for election campaigns. And to keep an eye on all these activities, the ECI appoints election observers who can monitor and report violations. Even you as a citizen can enforce it too thanks to the C-Vigil app. The process is simple, where you can report violations with photo or video proof. Easy. Yes, some provisions are already legal offences under the RPA Act of 1951 or the Indian Penal Code, such as promoting hatred between communities, intimidating or threatening voters, bribing voters, etc. In other instances which fall under the breach of MCC rules, the ECI can only issue public or private warnings. It can take disciplinary measures such as directing the removal of offensive or misleading campaign material or cancelling or postponing election events or meetings. But just like every coin has 2 sides, the MCC does too. Political parties tend to use MCC violations against their opponents to slow down their opponent's game.
BJP and the Congress have lodged complaints against each other with the Election Commission about the Model Code of Conduct violations.
117 शिकायतें. इस पर क्या कार्रवाई हुई है, क्या कार्रवाई नहीं हुई है, इसकी भी जानकारी यहाँ दी गई है.
ये तो हुआ Model Code of Conduct. If you are interested to know more, check out ECI's official MCC guidelines linked below. अब जहाँ MCC puts forth codes of election conduct, our election law, sections 126, 126A and 135C of the Representation of People Act 1951, puts forth the 48 hours long elections silence period. The second term that we are going to quickly discuss today. Think of the silence period as MCC on steroids. And legal, matlab offences under silence period could lead to imprisonment or fines. The silence period is that period जहाँ सब शांत हो जाता है. Rally grounds turn empty or parties' flags fly quietly, roads resume to the normalcy of everyday life, and voters get time to think in peace. Simply put, this is the period just for voters, where in those 48 hours, the Chanakya Niti of politicians stop and the voters start. What happens during the election silence period? Well, for one, no sale of daru. whichever region is due to go to polls, that region will basically see no liquor sale at bars, hotels, pubs, restaurants, steakhouse, etc. for 48 hours prior to the date of polling. Goal? To enforce the law around no liquor for votes game, making it easier to crack down on liquor distribution. Because this was obviously once a thriving poll strategy, still prevalent in pockets, no doubt. What's more, well, in election silence, our conventional media must stay quiet. No last minute campaign content, no exclusive interviews, and definitely no paid advertisements. Take paid ads for example. They are banned for a few reasons. One, they can manipulate public sentiment at the last moment and distort the voters' independent judgment. Moreover, the wealthier parties could dominate airwaves and digital spaces right before voting. And so, all print advertisements require pre-certification by the Media Certification and Monitoring Committee, especially on polling or pre-poll days. However, ads and interviews are not the only thing to look out for in the media. All opinion or survey polls are also prohibited during election cycles. For instance, Bihar will head to the polls in 2 phases. Publication of any opinion or exit poll is prohibited throughout the election until voting has concluded in the second phase, all to keep that shant atmosphere intact before the big day of voting. However, in today's age of rapid information exchange, the idea of a truly silent election silence is just ideal on paper. After all, anyone can share updates on Instagram, Twitter, or any social media platform. Therefore, enforcing an effective election silence lies not just in the hands of the ECI, media, or political parties, but also citizens. इतना सब कुछ क्यों बताया? Just to explain these 2 terms. Because at the end of the day, elections are the biggest group project this country runs with you partaking in it. And the RPA Act and the MCC are the rule books that keep it from becoming total chaos, whose basics we should all know since we vote. Sure, it's not perfect, some break the rules, others bend them, but it's what keeps the world's largest democracy ticking and mostly civil. Well, thank you for watching, and you know the drill. If you like this video, hit the like button, share and subscribe.